Hello and welcome. It's great to be here with you again to share some more thoughts from the Bible with you this week. New videos every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so please do like and share and subscribe and all of those things. You know, I forget where I saw it, probably on Facebook or somewhere like that, but I remember seeing an image that someone showed explaining how we tend to put ourselves in the position of the good guys when we read through the Bible. You know, we think of the lessons that we could learn from those characters that we quite like in the Bible. We look for lessons from the perspective of the Israelites, not the Egyptians. You know, we look for lessons from the life of David, not from Saul, or from a character like Daniel, but not King Nebuchadnezzar. And yet, more often than not, I find there are a lot of lessons, a lot of things that we can see in ourselves in those bad characters, in the characters that we don't really want to relate to so much. You know, we can be as stubborn as Pharaoh when he just point blank refused to let the Israelites leave the land of Egypt. We can be as jealous as Saul when he was looking on this young man who was rising through the ranks so quickly, who people were singing his praises more than Saul himself. We can be as self-focused as King Nebuchadnezzar rather than as God-focused as Daniel was in the stories that we read about him. Well, I was pondering this idea as I read through the story of the Prodigal Son in the Bible recently. It's a story that's pretty well known, you know, this young guy who decides he wants his inheritance early and goes off and takes half of the wealth of his father and absolutely wastes it all on wild living. Then he comes back and realizes his mistakes and pleads for mercy. We read of the benevolent father who runs out to his returning son and throws his arms around him, puts his finest robe on him, and orders a party for this son who was lost but is now found. It's a wonderful story, and we can and should consider what it means from the angle of this prodigal son. You know, we've all had that moment of returning to the Father and being embraced by his love and forgiveness. But we should also consider it from the aspect of other people in that story. You know, we should think about it from the perspective of the Father, the absolute compassion and mercy that he showed despite being hurt by his son. But also, we shouldn't just skim over the part about the prodigal son's brother. See, his part isn't quite so nice, you know. Instead of welcoming this prodigal brother home, instead of throwing his own arms around his brother and saying, "Welcome back," he goes out and sulks. This is what we read in Luke chapter 15, verses 28 to 30. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you. And I've never disobeyed your orders, yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him." I think we tend sometimes not to focus on that part of the story because it hits just a little bit too close to home for us. How often do we let jealousy get in the way of our relationship with God? It's not fair. Why do they have so much when I have so little? Why do they seem so able to hear God speak when I struggle so much? Why were they promoted when I am clearly more skilled for the job? We may not even be aware of it, but those little thoughts, those little feelings, they can infiltrate our minds, and we can end up just like the brother in this story. Perhaps it's a desire for stuff that takes priority in our hearts. You know, I don't have the fattened calf. I don't even have a young goat. This is totally unfair. I deserve to have these nice things as well. But I just love the father's response to his oldest son. In verses 31 and 32 of that same chapter, he says, "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." Regardless of our position in life right now, regardless of what stuff we have right now, we have access to everything that God offers. Everything. That's power and peace and joy and love and every spiritual blessing in Christ and our eternity secured. Everything I have is yours, the father in this story says. And it is as true for us today as it was for that brother in the story back then. And yet it gets clouded when we focus so much on what other people have rather than on the goodness that God has showered into our lives and onto us. Instead of looking at what other people have and feeling jealousy stir in our hearts, we should be focused on what we have and be absolutely overjoyed at all of the wonderful promises that God has given to us in his word. Yes, we may not understand why we face a difficult situation or why it is that other people seem to have an easier journey than us or seem to have so much more than we do. But none of that changes the fact that we have full and complete access to God every single day of our lives. "My son," the father said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours." The older son was so blinded by what he saw as an injustice that he lost sight of the fact that the father was always with him. How easily we do the same thing. But God is saying absolutely the same thing to us today. My son, my daughter, whoever is watching this right now, I am always with you, and everything I have is yours. That is all that you will ever need. Thank you so much for joining me here for these Bible thoughts again today. I'll see you next time.